Welcome to Bayshore Youth Online. My name's Shane and I'm the Youth Director here at Bayshore Community Church. We're so excited to have this opportunity to have online service for those of you that aren't ready to come back and meet in person yet, or maybe you were busy this month and weren't able to catch one of the times at one of the campuses. So we're so excited you have this opportunity to see what we're learning and not get behind or continue to stay caught up on what's going on. This is our first lesson in our series, Like Me. Like Me will be a 3-month series, and it's about identity. It's about how you see others see you, and what we're encouraged or what we're trying to be like. And that's a very important thing right now that's with the teens and the youth and anybody that's going through high school, is what we see and how we want people to see us. You know, we try to keep up with the Joneses, so they say. We try to make our pictures look perfect. We try to make our posts perfect. We try to say the funniest things. In reality, we just need to be who we are, who God has made us to be. So this is a very encouraging series. Hopefully you'll be able to come back and join us in person. We meet at Millsboro the 2nd Wednesday of the month. We meet at Rehoboth the 3rd Wednesday of the month, and we meet at Fenwick on the 4th Wednesday of the month. And if you aren't able to attend, online is always an option now. So we're super excited that you decided to join us today.
Don't you hate it when things are unfair? Like when you studied for hours and hours for that history test, then barely passed, only to find out that your friend got a B who you know for a fact got the answers from a friend before he took it? Totally unfair. Or watch this, when your sister, who never cleans her room, never does her chores, and always messes things up, seems to always get what she wants while you feel like you hardly ever get what you want. You're actually the one who keeps things in order around the house, yet you never seem to get any recognition from your parents. That's very unfair. Maybe you have to share a car with your brother, but you're the one who's always paying for the gas and keeps it clean. Unfair. Maybe you have to watch the athletes be excused early from class for the big game. You know that this means that they have extra time to prepare for the test. Unfair, right? I could keep going. This happens all the time when I'm scrolling on Instagram. I can't tell you the number of times I've been scrolling, totally happy with my life, minding my own business, until I'm watching my friend's story and I see something that completely deflates me. She went to my favorite vacation spot for the weekend. Wasn't she just there last month? He got to go to the concert I was dying to see, and it's all over his story. His family is still together, which means that he doesn't have to change houses every weekend like I do. She and all of her siblings are good at every sport they play, and I'm pretty sure all of them have been offered full ride scholarships. He has the latest Adidas kicks while I'm stuck wearing last year's shoes. He got the newest this. Her life is so much better because she has that. You know what I'm talking about. I can go from feeling good about life to feeling like life isn't great in about 10 seconds. All of a sudden, I'm not just disappointed, I'm ticked off. It's just not fair. And you know this already. In addition to feeling miserable, when we do this, we start to assume that other people have the perfect life. We look at what they put online and then match it up to what we know is true about our current reality. And when we do that, their life looks better, they look better, and we recognize a familiar reality. Their life is greater than my life. We feel less than, and it's typically when we respond in one of the following ways. First, we might overachieve. Maybe seeing everyone else's perfect life lights a fire under you, and you start working really hard to keep up with what other people are doing and projecting, hoping you'll get the same results. Or we might do nothing. Maybe watching others makes you feel like there's no way you can do what they do or be who they are. So why even try? Maybe we just play it over and over in our minds, whether it's anxiety, sadness, jealousy, or motivation to go out there and make your post look better. You may find yourself unable to think about anything else. No matter how we respond, the result is the same. It feels bad. That's what comparison does. Here's the tricky thing about comparing our life to someone else's. We know ourselves too well. We know and live the good, the bad, the happy, and the sad. And we know that places like social media are designed to display the highlights of life, just the good stuff. That's why we will do everything we can to make sure that others only see the highlight reel of our lives. We aren't going to post about that fight we just got into with our girlfriend, on our real Instagram at least. But we will post a fire photo of ourselves, and we may even take that one photo 30 times just to make sure that we have the right lighting, look, filter, and angle. Or we rewrite the same funny comment 30 times to make sure it's actually funny. Admit it, you've totally done that. We've all perfected the art of projecting the life we want others to think we have, even if it doesn't match the life we actually have. And here's what's crazy. We forget that everybody else is doing the exact same thing. They're posting their best life, not their real life. But somehow our brains trick us into believing that their highlights are the whole story. Let me say it another way. When we compare ourselves to others, especially on social, we believe things about ourselves based on someone else's half-truth or fully fake display. Comparison has become such a norm in our culture that most of us don't even realize that we're doing it. The good news is that what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes will not only help us recognize when we're doing it, but it will also help us understand what to do about it. Even though we live in a world full of social media hype that may seem impossible and even totally unrealistic, we actually may be surprised at what is possible and real. One of the greatest teachers and followers of Jesus that ever lived was a man by the name of Paul. He made it his mission to make sure that everyone he met knew how their lives could benefit from following Jesus. He traveled all over the known world, establishing relationships with many different groups of people in different regions who viewed him as an authority figure when it came to how to live a better life, thanks to Jesus. Paul traveled a lot from town to town in order to maintain relationships with people and offer them the life-changing news of who Jesus was and what he had to offer. When Paul wasn't present with the different churches he planted, he made a point to write letters to stay connected. You could say it was his version of staying active on Instagram or Snapchat. And in these letters, Paul was known for being pretty direct. He was passionate about following Jesus and leading others to do the same. While everything Paul did was out of love, it's likely that sometimes people felt like they were being called out in areas where they weren't measuring up. In response, they did what a lot of us do. They lashed out. Have you ever done that? They began to tear Paul down. Their strategy to feel better about themselves was to make him look worse. In a word, they were petty. Listen to how Paul responded to these criticisms in a letter to the people in a city called Corinth. Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant. I'm pretty sure the Greek word for this linguistic tool translates roughly to sarcasm. Paul clapped back at the critics. He wasn't messing around, and in this passage, he's addressing the comparing that is going on among people and the struggle that it had created. Paul is saying, in no uncertain terms, it's absolutely ridiculous to let your behavior and life be based on a comparison to someone else's behavior or life. And it's even more ridiculous to spend time figuring out how you measure up to people just like you in order to make yourself look better. If I were to sum things up, Paul was saying, hey, look, comparing any human to another human is ignorant and it makes you look silly. My mom used to tell me, there's always going to be someone who has more than you, and there's always going to be someone who has less. Her point wasn't for me to focus on people who had less so that I feel better about myself. Her point wasn't for me to focus on people who had more so that I would stay humbled. Her point was that comparing with others was pointless. It was a game I would never win. There's a principle found in the book of Proverbs, a book from the Old Testament of the Bible, a time before Jesus was around that Paul would have known by heart. It says this, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Solomon, the man who wrote this principle, was passionate about how important it is to guard our hearts. Why? Because what we do almost always comes from what we believe in our hearts. Our hearts matter because they control everything else. So we should guard our hearts. The opposite, one of the quickest ways to destroy our hearts, is comparison. If we see a post about how great someone else's life is and we allow it to get into our hearts, to mess with what we believe about ourselves, we're in danger. If it makes us feel less than or worthless, it's like an attack on the heart that can ultimately mess with our entire life. That's why we have to get this right. If you remember nothing else today, remember this. Don't compare your worth with their post. Don't look at someone else, assume that their life is perfect, and conclude that your life is no good because in that moment, it doesn't look like theirs. Don't make a decision about how you look or don't look based on someone else's picture. A picture that was most likely taken 30 times, filtered, face-tuned, and edited. Don't make decisions about your worth based on what you see or perceive in other people. Yeah, this all sounds great, but how does this work? How do we actually fight the temptation to allow comparison to rule our lives? How do we guard our hearts like Solomon wisely suggested? It may not be easy, but it starts with the very word Solomon used: guard. Set some boundaries for what you see and what you allow your heart to participate in. If something messes with you, destroys how you feel, or gets to your heart in a bad way, pay attention to that and step in to give yourself a break. You guard your heart when you guard your Instagram, guard your Snapchat, guard your TikTok, guard your scroll, guard your thoughts when you're watching the likes roll in or not roll in fast enough. Guard your comments, guard who you follow. Guard yourself when you interact with others who make you feel less than. Guard who you spend time with, and especially those who constantly complain about their own life. In other words, when you find yourself in a situation, whether it's on social media or real life, where you are more likely to compare yourself to others, be on guard. Pay attention. Something is trying to get to your heart and you need to set a boundary there. So much of this can be tough to notice in the moment. That's why being on guard can be helpful. Pay attention to what you do when you feel yourself spiraling into the comparison game. Maybe you find yourself overachieving and striving for the attention of others. Maybe you find yourself feeling so deflated that you wonder, why do I even try? Or maybe you find yourself playing the images or words over and over in your mind. When those things happen, pay attention. That's your clue that you're stuck in the comparison game. So when that happens, ask yourself these questions. Number one, what things are fueling how I feel? Number two, what are some things I want to do because of how I feel? And number three, what or who am I comparing myself to that's bringing up these feelings? We guard our hearts by paying attention to what we feel when we're tempted to play the comparison game. This may seem like a really big task. That's why I want to encourage you to talk to someone in your life, someone you trust, about what it looks like for you in your life to guard your heart and stop the comparison game. You aren't the only one who struggles to compare your life with someone else's, but living a life where you feel less than doesn't have to define how you feel, and it certainly doesn't need to define your worth. Remember, don't compare your worth to their post. What would it look like if you began to guard your heart when it comes to comparing your life to others? Imagine being able to walk in confidence about who you are. Imagine how different your day would be.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the series today like me. If you are like me, we do struggle with these things from time to time. Just because you're in middle school or high school doesn't mean that you're the only one that struggles with these things. As you go through life and as you are an adult, you still struggle with the same things. Why? Because we allow thoughts and we allow things to get in our minds that shouldn't be there. And right or wrong, indifferent, we always try to portray something that we're not. And I hope this series encourages you as it has me, and continue to be the person that God has created us to be. I would like to encourage you to get on YouVersion Bible app and follow along with our devotions for this series on a daily basis. There's a 21-day devotion. Of course, it's only 3 weeks, and this lesson's obviously 3 months, but it is typically a 3-week series. But since we're meeting once a month at each campus, it will last for 3 months. If you want to follow along with the daily devotion, get on YouVersion Bible app. Up in the little right-hand corner with a little search button, type in XP3 like me, and it will come up with the devotion. So it gives you the daily devotion. You can follow along with this series and this lesson. If you have any questions or need any help, need any prayer, you need to reach out to somebody and talk to us, please contact us at bayshore.online.